hello, and welcome to episode 39 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin. That's Kevin.
I'm Kevin. He's Colin. No fancy intros today because you are going to deal with the essentialized, full-on, full-throated us.
Yes, today we're dealing with formative games. 5 games each to get to know us. We've tried to do a couple of episodes where we talk about other games before that didn't pan out that well, but this one I think will be quite interesting and fun.
So, Colin, this is a video game podcast, yes?
Yes.
You've played games. I've played games. Both of us like games.
We like games. This is a fact.
Why? Why do we like them? What appeals about video games to us in a way maybe separate or additional or like, say, books or movies or podcasts? What makes games so fun to play and the like?
I mean, look, I think that the easy answer, that one is everybody's going to go to, is it's interactive media. You could also have some kind of highfalutin answer of how video games combine narrative, music, visuals, and add the interactive element to become the highest art form. But let me tell you something. I've been playing video games since the age of 5, since before I could even read. And there's something about it that pulls me in a way that no other... Like, I love books, but I'm not spending my evenings staying up to 1 a.m. on a workday reading books. I'm doing it playing Fire Emblem. And there's something ineffable about it that I can't really quite describe that just appeals to me as a person. So basically, my answer is I don't fucking know. Why do you like video games?
Creative, malleable, it says interactive portions. Now, Colin, I go back and consume media I've already consumed. Books, movies, especially books. I think more than most people.
Yes, you do.
But it's a completely different level for a video game. 1,000 hours in Crusader Kings 2. I don't know how many hours in, say, Hearts of Iron. Or just going through the Kaseki series. Dozens and dozens of hours. Something special and unique about games. For me and for a lot of people who do not like, say, to read, or even to watch much movies or TV, will play a lot of games. And that's really interesting. What makes them so different?
I do think that it comes down to the interactive aspect, because what the interaction allows the game to do is capture your attention more than anything else. Look, I've read lots of good books. I've gotten a Harry Potter book, midnight release, and then spent all night reading it so that I could be the first one to finish it in my class in the 4th grade, which I did, and I read it that whole night, and it was great. But that's very rare, and I don't do that much anymore. And even then, that won't make me, like, skip a meal.
Colin, you should not be in any 4th grade classrooms anymore.
Damn, you caught me. But, like, I distinctly remember playing Civilization 5 with a good friend of mine a few years ago. And I literally lost track of time. And I never lose track of time. You know me, I'm early to everything. I've been early to my own birth before. And yet, with Civ 5, I played all day. I forgot to eat lunch. And it was because just the mechanics of, A, talking with a good friend, but also just thinking through that one next turn is mentally addicting that I could not put it down.
You don't really read books with a friend as a social activity.
No.
You can watch a movie or TV show, but it's not really interacting. The lines of engagement go from you to the medium, maybe. Not really between you, even if you're in the same room. But with competitive or cooperative or any kind of games that can do with multiple people, the social aspect is intrinsic to it. And for me, that was a huge component of what makes games so fun, the fun to play on their own, and also as a means of connecting and reconnecting with people.
Sure. And, and I think that brings us to our first category. Because in order to make this interesting, it kind of happened organically, but we realized that in picking 5 formative games, they kind of fell into 5 different categories. The first one answers the question, what got you into games? What was your first video game, really? The second question is, what got you into RPGs? The third, what game changed your perspective on games? What made you realize they could be something different? The fourth would be, what game encapsulates the social aspects more than anything else? And the fifth category is Fire Emblem, because you know that we had to have that on there.
Yes.
So Kevin, let me ask you, what was your first video game? What got you into games?
Well, I played some games before this that I know intellectually. But the first game I really got into in any aspect, we have the same. It's Pokemon. Game
Yeah.
Boy, then the Game Boy Advance, and Colin is
I,
displaying 2 Pokemon cartridges right now.
they are not my childhood cartridges, and they're way too expensive right now, but I got me Pokemon Red, Pokemon Yellow.
I think it was and is so compelling. It's easy to learn, more difficult to master. It's not an open world, but for the late 90s, you could go almost anywhere, it seemed, do so much, collect, play how you want to play, how it's fun for you. It is a bit linear, but it didn't feel like A to B to C to D.
Right. I mean, look, it is a linear game. We know that now. But let's remember what age we were when we started this. I mean, I said that I've been playing video games since I was 5. Pokemon Red was my first video game, but it wasn't my first introduction to Pokemon. People our age, we watched a lot of the Pokemon anime. I'm assuming you're the same.
Yes.
Even that, I have memories in my preschool of kids bringing in Pokemon cards, and I didn't know what they were, but I knew they were cool, and I recognized it was Pokemon. I saw a Machop card, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. So that finally, I remember distinctly my 5th birthday, and I open up my presents, and I see that there's a Game Boy, and I see that it's Pokemon Red. I went ballistic. And it wasn't just because, oh my god, it's Pokemon. It's now I finally get to be a Pokemon trainer. Now, fun fact, I could not read. I also could not figure out how to leave my house. So for the first week, all I did was walk around in the house and didn't know how to leave because I didn't know you just press down. But once I did that, then I could train Pokemon, but I couldn't get past Viridian Forest because I didn't figure out how to get out. It took me a while. But the game taught me how to read and apparently taught me problem-solving skills.
See? It's educational.
It's educational. I had a book that was all about how the Pokemon trading card game taught kids math, and I pulled that out every time my my elementary school teacher would get on my case for playing Pokemon cards.
Good to know. Good to know.
Are you a fan of Pokemon now?
Not so much. I played a bit of Arceus. It just didn't click with me for whatever reasons. I'll go back to it when I have a spare minute. I read some Pokemon fanfic, as is my wont, so I'm a bit connected, but I'll always think of it as something that, was in the past. Even if I play Pokemon now or read Pokemon media, it feels like something of the 90s, more than 20 years ago.
Sure. I mean, certainly, I'm a proud Gen 1er, as it were. Not that I only played Gen 1, but I started that way. I would say that I'm a Pokemon fan. I'm not a fan of current Pokemon. I still buy the games as they come out. I try to, though this year I was unsuccessful, take off the Friday that it comes out and play through it all weekend. I think I still managed to beat it that weekend, but still. But I don't go back to the modern Pokemon games. I do go back and play Pokemon Fire Red. I do go back and I replay Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Question for you then. How much, and you may or may not be able to distinguish, how much is it the nostalgia, do you think, and how much is this game does hold up?
For me, they definitely hold up. And they're the core aspects of Pokemon have continued to be fun, which is why I played the new ones. But I also think that these old games have a much stronger basis to continue to enjoy Pokemon from than the new ones. And maybe we can talk about this even more when we talk about other stuff, but last year I got into the Pokemon ROM hacking community that went back into like Pokemon Fire Red and did things like created a new story or made new game mechanics like side quests or changed where Pokemon were, made whole new Pokemon games, but based off of that Fire Red engine. And to me, this demonstrated that my love for Pokemon, like the core fundamentals of Pokemon, has stayed strong. It's Game Freak that has moved away from me. And that's why I don't like the more recent games. But what Pokemon used to be and how it's been evolving in a different track through the community is really, really fun. If you're ever looking to give it a shot, I'd be happy to help you out.
Yeah, and it sounds like the reasons that not got you into Pokemon, but kept you in Pokemon, it's still around among not the game designers, but game enthusiasts, the modders.
Yeah, for sure.
And I can really sympathize and understand how that, because taking a game and modding it has been huge for me.
Yes. Why don't you talk a bit about that experience? Because I think this is your answer for what changed your perspective on games.
Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne. The campaign's good, decent, nothing to write home about, but the modding, in general, that Battle.net has for Warcraft, StarCraft, I remember doing Helm's Deep mod on StarCraft 2, which doesn't make any sense. I think like Gimli was a flamethrower, Aragorn was a Protoss swordsman. It's just totally nonsensical. But taking a game, playing with other people, playing something different, it breathes new life, new socialness, not a word, but whatever, into the games. It extends the shelf life.
I mean, that modding engine is really powerful. I mean, for Christ's sake, Dota was created as a mod for Warcraft 3. I remember playing it back in computer camp, getting my ass kicked for sure. But that mod spawned an entire genre of games about 15 years later.
And one of them, League of Legends, has a hit TV show, Arcane, which, Colin, you need to watch.
Kevin, you have a lot of media recommendations that, by the way, I never ask for, that I am not planning on consuming. You want me to read a 15 million word web novel?
3 million words, 15,000 pages, or 11,000 pages. It's tough to... But I know your tastes, and I know that you would like Arcane.
Maybe.
I hope you love Attack on Titan and are disappointed you never got into it before now.
This is a bit far afield. So, okay, you really got interested in the modding aspect of Warcraft 3, but how did that change your perspective on games? Because that's what you have this under the category for. How does that change your conception of this medium?
Games can be more than what they seem. Or what they are, even. It's a average, kind of forgettable strategy, 4X, whatever game.
It's a real-time strategy game.
RTS. And what it became was Mafia, Lord of the Rings, all sorts of just scenarios to play through online with other people. And I don't know, like games, it's not just you play it, you beat it, and move on. They can stick with you.
I mean, more than that, it becomes a platform, right? Think of, I remember we used to play Crusader Kings 2 a lot back in the day. That game is not on this list, but okay, you still do maybe. But I remember that you got really into the Song of Ice and Fire mod.
Yeah, I mean, some games, the base game is okay. Hearts of Iron. The mods make it phenomenal. I think I put more time into CK2 mods than the actual base game of CK2, which was still like 400 hours.
Right. What I find interesting is that your answer is all about users taking the fundamentals of a game that you really like and then building off of it, which is what I like about Pokemon ROM hacks. Whereas my answer for this question has more to do with how I've realized developers can approach level design and the creation of fun for the player. The answer that I picked for this question was Super Mario 3D World.
So, that's a platformer, isn't it?
Yeah, 3D platformer.
But Colin, aren't platformers linear?
Yeah,
How can
they
you
are, for
have
sure.
creativity with them?
Well, and that's why I think that this is coming from the developer's perspective. A platformer, outside of a few games that really have more platforming elements than actual platformers, but a linear platformer, it's not about the creativity of the player necessarily. You can have some creative tactics for speedrunning and stuff, but really what it is about the creativity of the level design. Something that really clicked with me. Well, first of all, the audience should know that Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U is not only probably my favorite Mario game of all time. I'm pretty sure it's the first platformer I ever actually beat. I had played platformers before, but I never beat any until I sat down and just really made sure that I got through 3D World. And the reason why I could was because each level was different from one another and was a masterclass in introducing new concepts gently and then immediately challenging me with them thereafter as a way to organically force me to build mastery towards Mario's movesets in order to complete these levels.
So, the question that comes to mind right away,
Yeah.
what kind of replayability for these type of games? Once you know how to beat it, and to beat it optimally, do you just go back every so often and be like, yeah, I still have the goods, I can do it? There's a quote perfect end quote end state of beating the game. Is it, can I beat it 5 seconds shorter, 10? Do you go back to them, and if so, why?
I mean, there's definitely speedrunners. I'm not one of those, but that could be something. Also, we have to have the distinction between beaten and completed, because you can beat this game without completing it. If you really want to complete it, you have to do a perfect run, or you have to touch the top of the flagpole on every level, I believe with every character, which is a lot of replays, and I don't feel like doing that. But I will say that when I beat it on the Wii U, and then it came out on the Switch, and I bought it immediately and replayed it on Switch. The reason why I so voraciously devoured that game a second time is because quite simply, the execution of getting through the levels is a fun, enjoyable time. By this, I mean, the level design is just fun to do, that the challenges aren't too difficult nor too easy. So, especially when you've had some distance from it, you're coming to it again, you're kind of reactivating your memory of it, but you're still learning. On top of that, the visuals, charming, music is excellent, and it turned into a cozy experience in a way that now Super Mario 3D World is a comfort game for me.
So I have a question, and let me know if this is a right assessment or not.
Sure.
Is the fun, say, more in the moment than anything else?
What do you mean by that?
Because I feel like some games I play, and they're fun to play, but I spend a lot of time thinking about them, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more than I have fun playing them, even though they're not unfun, they're not bad. But some games I get so caught up in the moment, but that it's such a strong feeling because it's ephemeral, and when I'm done, I'm done.
No, yeah, it's definitely more fun in the moment. A platformer is all about the execution and the exploration of the level. Now, you might find, okay, I need to finish this challenge or find a way to get to this area. You can't figure it out, and so you'll think about it later. But this is not like CK3, where you're plotting the downfall of your medieval rivals as you're trying to fall asleep, and then you wake up and you put that into execution. Platformers are about the moment-to-moment gameplay, and then when you want to be done for the day, you're done for the day, and it's not a problem.
You know what is a problem, Colin?
What's a problem, Kevin? Are transitions?
You know what games really last? I think for both of us, and that's why we're doing this podcast.
That really last?
Yeah,
Yeah. What kind of games really last,
they
Kevin?
stick with you. RPGs.
Indeed. But what got you into RPGs? Let's first off and say Pokemon is an RPG, but it's not a game that people play and say I'm into RPGs.
I'm into Pokemon, yes, but maybe not I'm into RPGs. So I was first given the good news with Baldur's Gate 2. Brilliant game. I've talked a lot about it. It's such an expansive story. The gameplay is mostly fun. D&D. It's the story. It's the characters. It's the interactions. You feel like you're part of a world. But Colin,
I mean, you love this game so much. I'm still shocked that you did not choose to challenge me to play that game this year.
oh, there's a reason I picked Planescape Torment. Baldur's Gate 2 showed me the good news. I was blinded by the light on the road to Damascus with KOTOR 2, Knights of the Old Republic 2. I think it may be the best written game ever.
Given the fact that it's not completed, I find it difficult to support you on that. But what really drags you along to KOTOR 2? Because this is not the first time you've brought KOTOR 2 up on this podcast. It seems like every other sidebar, you're bringing up Kreia.
It's the characterization, it's the writing, it's the braveness, courage the game designers write. It's as little as addressing the trope of growing stronger through killing, XP, death, and Kreia commenting, why did you not reflect on this? It's the philosophical, what does it mean to be a Jedi, to be a Sith? Can one be neither? Can one have elements of both? Is it really black and white? Is there room for gray? It's having the first act conclude with a boss fight, not with combat, but with your ideologies on morality and life.
What I find interesting about your answer, and it makes sense because I know you and because we've talked about it, but your answer is completely narrative.
Yes.
From what you've described, KOTOR 2 could be a visual novel, and you might even like it more. Is there something about the gameplay that also contributes to you picking this game as the one that got you into RPGs, or do you not care about it?
I don't really care about it, and let me tell you why in an answer that would be a bit presentist. I think for a lot of RPGs, gameplay generally gets better. It's a bit clunky with the lack of, say, processing, or you can't model as many enemies on the field, or what say you. That can improve with technology, computing power. The narrative, the characterization, that's brilliant because of the writing.
Okay. I'm trying to track what you're playing. Are you saying that the gameplay of retro RPGs are necessarily worse than the gameplay of modern RPGs?
No, but the gameplay of KOTOR 2 is fine. It's fun. But it's not like, wow, this is genre breaking or it's a paradigm shift.
Sure. I think that's interesting that you bring it up that way, because my answer to this question is Tales of Symphonia. I'm bringing up the Tales series again. I'm not talking about Tales of Arise.
It's been a while. I was getting concerned that you had not brought it up.
Maybe I'll challenge you to play a Tales game when we do this challenge thing again. But so the interesting thing about Tales of Symphonia, I started reading about this game in Nintendo Power, and I had dabbled in other turn-based RPGs before this, and I'm saying other turn-based RPGs. It's a misnomer because Tales is not a turn-based one. But I had played like Golden Sun. I might have played Final Fantasy I on the Dawn of Souls collection. But while I knew that this was a genre that I was interested in, I also hadn't sunk its claws into me yet. Mostly the games I was playing was like Pokemon, Harry Potter, Tony Hawk, that kind of stuff. And then I read in Nintendo Power that this was a RPG with a sprawling world, interesting characters, with real-time combat in which, yes, you fought, but the computer controlled your teammates at the same time, and it all happened at once. And that blew my mind, because at the time, and I don't think this now, but at the time, I thought that turn-based combat, like it was fine, but it was kind of boring. I didn't really see the strategic value in it yet. I didn't really see the value in strategic value, but I saw this action-based system, and I thought, oh, that's amazing. That's going to immerse me more into this. I have to ask my aunt for it for Christmas, and she got it to me. And while I never beat it as a kid, I played a hell of a lot of it. I really did, and I fell in love with it. This game was also my introduction to the world of fan fiction, that and Pokemon, which I consumed a lot of in my teen years and have since walked away like an adult. Sorry to everybody I've insulted, including my co-host Kevin. Okay, maybe we should start having like screenshots of our chats because we've been flicking each other off the entire episode. It's quite fun. In any case, what I find interesting there is that while yes, the narrative in Tales of Symphonia is excellent and I fell in love with the characters, what attracted me to it and what made the genre of JRPGs in general, what sunk it into me was this gameplay innovation.
I'm not saying gameplay is not important, or that it's not even valuable or good. Like, I think the Kiseki gameplay is top notch in almost every respect. Much better than KOTOR 2, for example. But it's not what I look for first. In an RPG, I want the
Sure.
narrative. I feel like the narrative and characterization, it's 2/3 of the acronym, Colin. G is only 1/3, so checkmate, atheist.
Let's expand upon that. What about Trail's gameplay is better than KOTOR 2?
It's strategic. The quartz system, the arts and the crafts, which cannot believe that was translated like that, but moving on.
It has to be purposeful. Arts and crafts, for sure.
Like, countering elemental weaknesses, buffs, debuffs. It's a lot more than just attack until dead.
But you can play KOTOR 2 with all of those stuff. It's a D&D based system in which you can and probably should do that.
Well, I never did.
Honestly, same. But I know that like when I'm playing real D&D, we have to, otherwise we're going to die. So maybe it's a failure on KOTOR 2's part. Maybe it's a failure on difficulty level part. I don't know.
Yeah.
But part of figuring that out is talking about games with other people who have played them. And one of the best way to be able to do that is to play a game that really focuses on the social aspect. So, Kevin, what game do you most consider the social game for you?
Then or now, because it'll be different.
Well, then. We're talking about the game that you put on your list.
Halo. Fond memories of LAN parties. That's how old we both are. Going to each other's houses with controllers and just split screen, competitive, killing each other. It was great. Helping us bond with my friends in middle school and high school, and that's continued. I play Call of Duty Warzone with my college friends maybe 4 or 5 nights a week.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot of Warzone. I was wondering what you did with your evenings. I thought it was just reading web novels. I mean, I played a little bit of Halo back in the day. I was more into the single-player campaign. Never been one for competitive shooters myself, but maybe you're in a computer lab for like a programming class or something and you don't actually want to do your work, and so all the nerds spread a flash drive that has the Halo executable on it and you just play that instead of doing your work. I definitely did a bunch of that in high school.
Are you saying that you didn't do any kind of social multiplayer-ish games then?
No, I definitely did, just in a different way. I will say that the whole Xbox 360, PS3 generation, while I played both and played some of the bigger games on there, I was addicted to World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. Like, I'm talking, it was the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning. It was the last thing I thought of when I went to bed. I was trying to raid as much as possible. I remember the way that Wrath worked is that you would get stronger equipment by earning badges, which you did by dungeons. And the way that the system was designed is that you only got a certain amount of the best badges per week, but you could earn an unlimited amount, albeit slowly, of the second tier. And I literally played it all day, every day, as much as I could, except for school and homework and meals, to the point where even though I no longer could meaningfully upgrade my character beyond the best tier weapons, which I could either then get into better raids or just wait and go and have an actual fucking life, I would continue to grind to have small, minuscule upgrades. That's when I became a min-maxer. And it's the only time I've been a min-maxer. And the reason why I became a min-maxer is because the concept of raiding and doing dungeons is cooperative. You know, I got into a guild. I got really into my guild. We were on, at the time it was Ventrilo. Now people use Discord. I was old enough to be using Vent. We were on Vent all of the time. I liked my guild so much that for Christmas one year, I got my parents to get me a specially commissioned hoodie with my WoW character on it that also had like my guild tabard design and everything on it. It was like, it was a big part of my identity. And therefore, like, okay, we were raiding. We sucked at raiding. Like, we were awful. And looking back at it, the reason why we were awful is because I was the only one who gave a shit, and I was like 13, 14, I was like 14, 15, putting my heart and soul into it, min-maxing so I could make sure that I'm quote-unquote keeping up with everybody else. Meanwhile, they didn't give a shit and died on basic mechanics. I've since played later and realized that, you know, I don't have to min-max and I can still do well. But at the time, I felt like I owed it to my guildmates to do the absolute most that I could do to make sure that we were successful. And to me, that was the biggest social stuff. It was not just playing with other people. It was feeling the obligation to other people. And it was a great time. You know, it was a real community bonding experience. I grew a lot as a person. And now I don't talk to any of them, and I don't know who they are.
Cheerful shit, Colin. But it's a way of having games be more than just you in the game. It's you, the game, other people being more fun and bettered by it, through it, and with it.
I mean, like, there were real connections that one could make in a game like that. I don't remember this guy's name. All I remember is that, you know, we disagreed politically, and he was an older guy. He was, like, probably 30s or something, whereas, you know, I was, like, 14, 15, 16 at the time. What are you listening to?
Mickey, Disney, and DeSantis.
We're recording a podcast, Kevin.
I have an addiction, Colin. You're wow.
Jesus. Responsibility to other people.
You're with wow.
Pay attention. Anyway, I remember this guy. We politically disagreed, and what I was shocked by was that instead of just attacking me for disagreeing with him, we had an actual conversation about it. And that interaction changed how I thought about everything in terms of like just talking to other people. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the equalization of just being two guys in the same guild. Moments like that are invaluable.
I would have just called you a fascist and move on.
Yeah, I know. And that is how a lot of our discourse is nowadays. Somehow it was better back then. It wasn't all good back then. But moments like that really made WoW special to me. It wasn't just the game. It was the people.
You know what game also has people?
What game has special people in it, Kevin?
Okay, a game that we both put, a game series that we both put, has a lot of social elements within the game itself. Fire Emblem.
One of them does. Not mine.
Oh, I thought it was in the game from the start, supports and the like.
Okay, so here's something that you have to understand. So Path of Radiance does have a support system, which you've seen.
Yeah.
It also has the info screen, right? So you're having optional conversations. That part was introduced in Path of Radiance. Supports exist in Fire Emblem 7, the Binding Blade. The Blazing Sword. The Blazing Blade. We just know it as Fire Emblem here. I normally call it Fire Emblem GBA.
Blazing Saddle?
No. I have a story about that I'm not going to tell on air because we're kind of a family-friendly podcast. Anyway, Um, the look that you're giving me is priceless. No, so the way that it works in Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance is that you'd have two units sit next to each other, and if they were there for a number of turns, then you could support them if they were compatible, and then it was a short conversation. This is how you explored backstories, but it was very limited.
What the fuck?
You could only have up to 5 support conversations per character, which meant one character could get an A rank with another character, and that's it. That's still true in Path of Radiance, by the way, in case you didn't realize. Whereas with Fire Emblem Three Houses, supports are unlimited and common and very much in depth. Three Houses is a way more social game than any other Fire Emblem.
That sounds terrible for the Blazing Blade one, of just sitting next to each other, 5 limits. What the fuck?
I mean, that's why I don't do supports very often. They're very good gameplay-wise, though the game does not tell you the benefits of supports. You have to look all of that up on GameFAQs.
Does the game hate the player?
No, it's just challenging. I would say Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is probably harder, but it gives the player more information and tools. So the reason that we both picked Fire Emblem is, A, it's kind of on our minds, right? We're playing Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. I've beaten it now. You're close, I think.
Yeah.
And we're going to be recording an episode in which we talk about it soon. That's kind of part of this game challenging idea that we had. I know for you, Three Houses was your entry into like modern JRPGs, which I want you to talk about. But for me, Fire Emblem was an incredibly formative game in terms of who I wanted to be as a profession and as a person, because the narrative entranced me. It was the first time I really understood that I was interested in medieval politics, is through playing that game. Now, going back to it now, I realize that it's not this huge, great story, but at the time, it felt amazing. And I
didn't know that there was a Rosius in the game.
There is not a Rosius of Braga in the game. A Rosius of Braga appears in no video game as far as I know of, not even in Civilization. Maybe we should change that. I can mod him in. But when it comes to this, it set me along the course in life in which I wanted to be a medieval historian. I'm not a medieval historian. I'm a late antique historian, but I wouldn't have gotten here if not for playing Fire Emblem. Also, it taught me the power of patience and restarting chapters, because there is no casual mode in Fire Emblem Blazing Blade. You either restart or you let everybody die. And let me tell you, Kevin, on the first time that I beat that game, when I was a young kid, the only people that were alive at the end of my journey were the 3 lords and Marcus the Paladin. That was it. I let everybody else die because I was really bad at it.
Okay. In the post-apocalyptic wasteland, don't let Colin be a general.
Well, you can let me be a general now. I played Path of Radiance, didn't lose a single character. I'm playing Radiant Dawn now. I lost 1 because I could not be asked to try that chapter again. But in general. So tell me about I know you talked about it briefly on the podcast before, but I mean, look, man, you love Fire Emblem Three Houses. You have played this game more than I think is humanly possible by a man, period. Why? Why have you played this game for 500 plus hours?
It's not 500 plus. It's 300 plus.
Well, what? Okay, 300 plus. Do we want to do the math on this? How many days that is? Let's say would 350 be a good figure for you?
Sure.
350 divided by 24 hours is 14.5 days. You have played this game straight for 2 weeks and a half a day, with no sleeping involved. If we account for sleep, that means that you have played this for 19 days. Almost an entire month of your living and breathing time have been spent playing Fire Emblem Three Houses over and over and over and over again.
Yes. I'm playing through it now.
Motherfucker is trying to play Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. He's on the treadmill. He texts me, I'm playing Switch. I'm playing video games again. What are you playing? Three Houses?
Okay, real fact. 1, The gameplay is fun. It's the customization, the classes, picking them, choosing the abilities, the combat abilities, guiding them into the units you want to be. It's addicting. One, two, the narrative, the story, the characterization is phenomenal. These characters appear one dimensional, one note, but you look back, you peel back the often layers of trauma, and you see how much care was made into constructing them, the world, the plot, how we grapple with, questions of forgiveness, morality, genocide, with the Lord, with the church. I think it's a brilliantly designed game. It's a brilliantly designed story, brilliantly constructed characters.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I fell in love with Three Houses when I first got it. I mean, I think I've told you this. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast. When it first came out, I was in Spain,
Yeah.
in Granada for about a month learning Spanish. I had it on pre-order. I ordered the limited edition, and I couldn't wait the week it would have taken me to just get home so I could play it. So what I did, by the way, Spain has very slow internet, at least when you're living with old people and your bedroom's literally a cave. So I went up to the second floor where I could put the Switch right next to the router, and I bought the game again so I could download it. It took like 3 hours. Meanwhile, Joaquin was all like, "I don't like video games. Second Life ruined the life of my friend." Only in Spanish, and it was in a Granadan accent, so I could barely understand that. But that was a fun thing to try to explain to him. And I got so entranced, like I was playing it every night. I was learning Spanish, doing my dissertation, playing Fire Emblem. That's what I was doing. And then I beat it on the plane home. I didn't even get a chance to play it on the big screen TV at home because I was done by the time the plane landed. And by the way, something that game does really well, and I know that you won't agree with me because you think I played through the worst route. And most people think that I played through the worst route, but I sided with the church because I did not get the foreshadowing that Edelgard was the big bad dude. So I didn't side with her. And that moment when you start, and Edelgard was my best unit, and Hubert was another one of my best units. Mm-hmm. And then I'm playing that route, and all of a sudden they betray me. I felt like there was a gut punch. That was so emotionally
You betrayed
effective.
them, Colin.
No, I didn't. They're the ones doing evil shit.
So that's the Silver Snow route, and that route is really, it's fate. Violet fated to become the vessel for the church, Edelgard fated to become the Red Emperor, who dies. The Crimson Flower route, if you stick together, that's about defying fate and forging your own path in life. It's rejecting the archetypes.
Sure.
Cutting the threads.
I find it unfortunate that I will probably never experience the other routes because I tried to replay it, get through the Blue Lion stuff, experience that story. And when it comes to the social aspects, I agree is quite good. Running around the monastery every month, talking to everybody, is boring. And more than that, I mean, maybe I have to play it on Maniac. The game is easy. The game showers you in EXP. You're quickly over-leveling most enemies by the time you're like 4 chapters in the game. And while I like an easier difficulty, I'm not looking to bang my head against something. I'm not looking to steamroll it either. And that's why I gave up my last one, because I'm like, nothing that I do will matter. I can just throw these units into the middle of the field, and they'll kill everybody. And if that's going to happen, I want to be able to earn it. And you earn that at the end of a Fire Emblem game, not 5 chapters into one.
Yeah, I play on Lunatic. I think it's called Maddening now, and it's a great decision. I mean, I play Kaseki on Nightmare.
Yes, you do. And I'm struggling on hard. Well, actually, last chapter I was not struggling, but I have had some difficult moments on hard.
I'm just better than you, Colin.
At Kaseki, baby. I don't know about everything else.
Not life, Colin.
Hey, look at where you're at and look at where I'm at right now. My apartment is small. I'm not being paid that much money, and I have no future job prospects at the moment. I'm sure I'll find something, but I'm waiting to graduate with no secured future in sight. You have a good job that lets you play video games on the clock because they don't know about it. And you have, like, what, a 2-story condo? You have more than one room? I would say if we're looking at our lives, you have one. You don't have to agree so hard.
But I think both of us kind of pinged off Engage. Well, I don't think you got it.
No, I did get it.
Oh, did you play it?
I did. I played it on hard, and then I found the 5th chapter to be too hard, and I stopped. So I might have enjoyed the gameplay more on normal, but the thing...
Okay, Colin. After you talk about...
The thing is, with a Fire Emblem game, what keeps you going through the hard moments are the story. Path of Radiance is a difficult game, but what makes you want to, reset the chapter and beat the chapter again is because the narrative is excellent. Engage's story, from the little bit that I've played, is stupid as fuck.
It's so bad. It's like a toddler regurgitated poo.
I don't want to think about the process by which a toddler would regurgitate poo, to be quite honest with you. That might, however, produce something that has the same colors as Alir's hair. So I think it's an apt description.
Are you insulting toothpaste, John?
I am insulting Toothpaste Kun.
It's just stupid. The stewards are creepy as fuck.
Yeah, that's something that started with Fire Emblem Fates as well, where it's the entire universe from the beginning centers around your character. It's not just... It's also like they've taken on these avatar aspects where you name the character and it's you in the game.
It's stupid.
Awakening did the avatar well. The rest of them have not. And I don't think that Fire Emblem benefits from a self-insert. Just give me a good narrative. And by the way, the world doesn't have to revolve around the Lord. Part of what makes classic Fire Emblem so narratively engaging is that shit happens to the Lord, and the Lord has to struggle their way through their problems. Ike is a self-made man. How far did you get before I spoil stuff?
Spoil up until chapter 20.
Okay, so you know that Ike becomes a general. By this whole time, you've seen him go from a newbie sellsword to a battle-hardened general. And that feels organic because you see all of the struggling that he's gone to. Alir wakes up and is worshipped as a god.
That's not hyperbole.
No, it's not hyperbole. It's like the first cutscene in the game. We really need to do this Fire Emblem Path of Radiance episode because clearly what we want to do is talk about Fire Emblem.
I think we've talked about what we set out to talk about. What games have defined us? What games have poured metal into the crucible of our beings?
Yeah, I mean, there's always more stories to tell about these games. There's more stuff to go into it. Maybe we'll revisit this topic and look at a different aspect of 5. I mean, games pop up all the time that seem to be important to us. But we are curious, what 5 games really helped shape you? We want to hear from you. Make sure to tweet at us at Trails in the Pod.
Until you do, and after, I'm Kevin. That's Colin. See you next time.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.